And thanks for the invitation here today. I welcome the opportunity as well to have been able to partner with our Irish Prison Service partners and the St. Stephen's Green Trust in the establishment and funding of the Travellers in Prison initiative. Michael mentioned at the start that this morning 3,621 people in Ireland woke up in prison. And the same morning, this morning, over 8,000 people woke up in Ireland under probation service supervision. Obviously, the imposition of being in prison is a much more onerous one, but he also made the point, and I'm going to make it again, that the community element of the criminal justice system and the sanctions we impose on people is extremely important, and certainly numerically a very significant number of people are sanctioned in the community. I also want to thank everybody involved in today's conference, and to compliment all the excellent presentations, and particularly the personal testimonies that people have made. As has been said already, the issue, and more importantly the voice of travellers in the criminal justice system has been and had been neglected for too long. And that's why the Travellers in Prison initiative is so important. It's a great opportunity to hold the mirror up to ourselves, to see what we're doing well and what we're not doing well, and to see what we need to do in the future and what we can do better. And after that long period of lack of attention and ad hoc activity, but relatively uncoordinated, the year 2014 was very significant for the publication of the Irish Penal Reform Trust paper on travellers in prison, for the workshop that was facilitated by the St. Stephen's Green Trust following on from that. And also, the same year, we in the Irish Probation Journal published an article by Professor Dennis Bracken, who I think I spotted down at the back of the room earlier on. Dennis is from the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, in Canada. And in a similar way to what I said a few minutes ago, there's been a huge lack of research in relation to travellers in the criminal justice system in Ireland. So Dennis researched probation practice with travellers in the Republic of Ireland. And it was a relatively small-scale study, but his findings won't be any surprise to the people here present. And he highlighted some of the things that equally were highlighted in the IPRT paper, such as the need for better data, the need for organisational, cultural competency, and a whole range of other things. Specifically in relation to the probation service, he asked the question, how could we become more culturally competent? He found that while travellers held some level of suspicion for the probation service as part of the wider criminal justice system, those travellers that he interviewed did generally say that they had a reasonably positive experience under probation supervision and with the probation officers who supervised them. But while pointing out some of those positives, he clearly identified, as I've said, room for improvement within our organisation and more widely in the criminal justice system. So the issue of data has been highlighted again and again, including today. Dennis Bracken highlighted it, the Irish Penal Reform Trust paper, and it has been mentioned numerous times today. And the ethnic identifier is one of the critical foundation stones for gathering that data. And as Michael did, I really want to compliment Kathleen Lawrence on her presentation earlier on. I was thinking as she was speaking, I only wish I could be half as clear in presentations that I make, but I think her presentation was a model of clarity and absolute, it was absolutely clear what she was saying. And I found it really useful, so thanks, Kathleen, in relation to that. In the probation service, just since last year, we have actually introduced new fields on our electronic case tracking system and incorporated ethnicity as measured by the Central Statistics Office and census data. It's become more clearer to me today from Kathleen and others that we can probably even improve further how we ask the relevant questions, when we do it, how we do it, and how we facilitate our staff to do that. So I feel happier that we're some way along that road, but again, there is further work that we need to do, because getting the data accurate is so important. What we have found just recently, and we're still in the process of ensuring the accuracy and the clarity of our data, but what we have found so far in gathering this data, and again this won't be of any surprise, that while travellers, as measured in the 2016 census, so we have quite recent census data, make up 0.65% of the population, 9.9% of the people on our caseload in probation are travellers. So again, there's a huge disparity there, and there is further analysis of that data, or those data, and further research that's ongoing regarding it at the moment. So I just wanted to give you that headline figure. So that is evidence, if evidence was needed, of the need for us to really explore this area further and see what we can and should do about it. The national strategy on travellers and Roma people, just launched earlier in the year, sets out clear actions and requirements for the justice system and for the Department of Justice itself to improve access to services in prison, for example, and working towards better community links and preparation for release for travellers who have been in prison, as well as preventing discrimination. And for the future, in terms of what we need to do, and a lot of this is tied into the public sector duty that we in the probation service and across the public service have under the Irish Human Rights and Equality Act 2014, and that's also something we've recently engaged as one of the pilot sites to develop and implement that legislation. And this whole area of travellers in the criminal justice system needs to be an even stronger part of that, which requires us to uphold human rights generally, as well as for specific groups, for everyone, for our staff, our service users, and everybody we come in contact. We also need to assess our current and developing use of the ethnic identifier question, as I said, in gathering data, and what can this tell us, and how can we use this information to provide better services and to provide them in a better way. The need for training of staff and doing that where appropriate, and generally I would think in a joined up and a coordinated way. We need to also, in probation, review other aspects of our practice, such as the assessments we carry out, the programmes and interventions that we deliver in order to provide a better service to travellers and with travellers. And all this is very timely for us at the moment, because we are developing currently our new strategic plan for the probation service for the next 3 years. We also need more research, some of which is starting to come through recently and currently. One of the issues that has come through in the research that's been published today, and research associated with the Travellers in Prison initiative, is the issue of trust. And I certainly want the probation service to be a trusted provider of services, not just to people, not just to groups or people like the judiciary, but also to all of the service users who use our services, and that includes travellers, clearly. There is a need for us to develop further our organisational cultural competence, as was highlighted in the research by Dennis Bracken. And we do need to include, as Michael said earlier on, a greater community focus, a focus on people before they go into prison, in preparing them while they're in prison for when they will eventually come out, and as numerous people mentioned today, that post-release follow-up, the post-release support and supervision. We also, in doing that, need to engage travellers directly in how we take all of this forward. And one of the things I think organisations like us within the justice system need to do is to look to a time sooner rather than later when we see travellers employed within organisations like the Probation Service. I know Michael mentioned earlier on the employment of his cousin and other travellers within the prison service, but we haven't, in my knowledge, achieved that yet within the Probation Service, and I think we all need to be working towards that. So the conference today and the Travellers in Prison initiative, in my view, and all the various actions that have been going on around that, and one of the things I took from today is I get a sense of a greater cohesion, a greater sense of coordination in all of that today. And I think that this conference represents a very positive splash in the water that is and will continue to make ripples out in the wider system in a very positive way. So I look forward to continuing to working with all of you to take this initiative forward and, as Michael Donnellan said, to mainstreaming the learning and the action on a very solid and effective foundation. So just as I said that 2014 was a time for one wake-up call, which came in a number of formats for the reasons that I've mentioned, I see 2017 now as the occasion of another even stronger wake-up call, not just for the recognition this year of travellers' ethnicity, but also for the positive actions that are already happening and that will result from this conference and the Travellers in Prison initiative. So thank you all very much.